Welcome to the Couples Academy show, guys. My name is Hassani.
And I'm Danielle.
And this is your opportunity every single morning for about 30 minutes to get something that will enhance your relationship and take it to the next level. We're happy to have each and every one of you with us from all over the world. You are tuning in from all 6 continents on this planet, and it's a pleasure to serve you globally.
It is a pleasure to serve you globally. We love getting on here every morning and just chit-chatting with you. Believe it or not, guys, we learn a tremendous amount from you and your comments. So what we want for you to do is every time you come on here, get with the commenting. The first comment you need to make is just who you are and where you're coming from so that we can see you and acknowledge you and know where you're calling, or not calling, where you're watching from. It really means a lot to us that folks get up at the craziest hours, right? It's not 9 a.m. around the world. So for somebody, it's 5 in the morning. Who knows? But y'all still tune in, and we appreciate you doing so. So make sure you jump on here. Let us know you're here. Like, share, subscribe, and make sure you hit that notification bell, because when you do that, you will never miss a show. But we're excited about today's show because we're talking about 5 ways to show empathy. And Hassani, doesn't it seem like it's more and more a rare occurrence in people that you find that folks just are numb to things or have some apathy about when they hurt people and how it's affecting others?
Absolutely, and that's why we're doing this show, because we sit with couples all the time, and if there's been pain caused by one, the other one feels like you just don't get it, you just don't understand, I wish you would just empathize with me more. And so one person is feeling something in their body, they're feeling like they care, they're feeling like they're showing up, but it's not connecting. And so we want to get the couples connected so that if I'm showing empathy, you really genuinely believe that it's real and that you can feel and experience it.
Yeah, and not just sympathy, right? Because you can sympathize with me and feel bad and feel pity for me, right? But when you empathize with me, now you're putting yourself in my shoes and you're actually feeling the pain with me. And that's really important, especially if you're the person that caused the pain.
That's right.
I want to know that you feel me, like not that you get it and feel bad and okay, I feel bad for you, but I just don't understand because it's never happened to me. I need you to understand, and I need you to do that by showing specific action. And that's what we're going to talk about today, talking about how to be and show more empathy.
So a question came up from William Scott. My spouse acts like she doesn't even care about the damage she's done to the relationship. How can I get her to show more empathy? So that's what we're talking about. We'll see you on the other side of this. Be right back. This is the Couples Academy show. We're Hassani and Danielle Pettiford, founders of Couples Academy, a private practice dedicated to saving marriages around the world.
We're not just recognized authorities on relationships. We're a real couple with real problems who almost called it quits.
We have 4 children, going on 20 years of marriage, and we practice what we preach.
Our mission? To change the way couples relate to one another and teach them the skills needed to improve the quality of their relationships.
This is the Couples Academy show.
Welcome back, guys. I want to hit this comment here that came in. There was the first comment from Zach. If we could pull that up. It says, "Good morning, Couples Academy. Me and my wife, Danielle, have found your videos and your book invaluable while trying to fix our problems. Thank you." And I want to thank you guys. They're from Ohio. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for just being willing to do the work and put it in. And that's the thing. That's what I love about our listeners, is that they're not just sitting here wasting time. They're actually getting with it, taking these practices into their home and utilizing them. So I want to commend you for doing that. And thank you for sharing that with us this morning. But I want to welcome my people, Jackie, Steven, Aaron, Louisa, Tahira, JG, good seeing you. LaShawn, Kia, Didi, Clarence, Kiera, they keep coming in. Good to see you guys all. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And let's jump into this topic.
So empathy, guys, what's interesting, what's a paradox, it seems like the closer we get in terms of establishing a relationship, so we talk about the 4 seasons, right? You go from the dating season to committed courtship to engagement to marriage. So we're becoming closer, but it seems like the closer we get, the less personal we get. Like at the beginning of the relationship, that's when you're really trying to woo your spouse, get to know them. You're having intimate conversations. I mean, for hours and hours, you're spending quality time. And then once you get into a full-on commitment, the relationship goes down to the bottom of the list of priorities because everything else comes up. And then that's when the disconnect begins to happen. So that closeness that you once had, you no longer have. And so oftentimes the emotional connection that you're searching for, it's a struggle to get that back. And so when hurts happen, when betrayals happen, it's hard to believe sometimes that our spouse actually cares. And you kind of alluded to it at the top of the show, the difference between sympathy and empathy. Sympathy is like when you have pity for somebody, when you feel bad for what someone else is going through. But to have empathy, it means that I'm going to try to feel what it is that you feel. So an empathetic person senses the emotions of the people around him or her and has the ability to tap into those same emotions. So let's just say an affair has occurred. I am the violator. You are the one who has been hurt. I've never been cheated on. So how in the world can I feel what you feel if that's not what I'm feeling? Well, sometimes you have to tap into an experience that you have had that has brought up the same type of feelings so that you can begin to empathize. So you may not be able to walk directly in their shoes, but maybe there's an experience that you had that is, I don't know, somewhat similar or represented some type of pain or betrayal or hurt, and you can tap into that to begin to empathize and understand what your partner's going through. And
at the end of the day, everybody can empathize with hurt and pain, right? So you don't actually have to have experienced an exact, replica of an event for you to be able to empathize with me. Hurt is hurt. If I feel, if I'm brokenhearted because you stole something that I really cared about, versus if I'm brokenhearted because you abandoned me, I'm still brokenhearted. You have your brokenhearted experience. So that's where you can connect. I think a lot of times people are not wanting to be empathetic. They're not wanting to allow themselves to be that vulnerable, to reveal that much of themselves, because for them, it doesn't feel safe. And I talk about this all the time, the different personality styles. There are just certain personality styles that actually really struggle with empathy. Okay? Honestly, and if you don't know your Enneagram, please reach out and get your Enneagram done so that you know what your number is, so that you know what we're talking about when we talk about the power of the Enneagram. Because if you are a 5, 6, and a 7, I'm a 7, we struggle with empathy. We actually have to put ourselves in the other person's shoes. You know why? And it could be a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons is because we overthink things and we process and we tend to be analytical about it. And it takes more of an emotional heart to see that. So you've got to actually learn how to put those layers on your personality. But if you have no idea how you process and all of that, and your spouse has no idea, man, you can just seem like a cold joker.
You certainly can.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you just don't even understand each other. So it's really important to also know who it is that you're dealing with. That's just one more layer on top of taking action that could be meaningful.
And once you know who you're dealing with, you know how to show up to that particular conversation when you're sharing feelings and emotions. So let's get into the 5 ways that you can begin to show empathy in a relationship. Number 1, actively listen more than you speak. Okay, we've been talking about communication for a long time, and the way in which you can empathize is through connecting through communication. Now, here's the deal, guys. We have 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 mouth. And so that's the proportion in terms of how we should be using our senses. So in essence, you should be listening twice as much as you speak. Oftentimes we're so ready to just jump in and tell our perspective and how we think and how we feel. And it is not your opportunity to do that because your spouse is the one who's hurting. So you have to give them center stage and begin to hear. Now, listening is probably one of the most highly important skills in communication that many people struggle with the most. So one of the things that you have to do to become an active listener is to give your undivided attention. You can't be distracted. You can't be looking through your phone, watching TV, reading a book. You know, I remember there was a couple that we were counseling, and literally their biggest struggle, they would not make eye contact. That literally, we're in this session and the spouse is just looking down like this. When it's time to talk and give his opinion, he's looking over like this. Like somehow there was a struggle to look into the eyes of the spouse. Now that
I don't
is
trust people that can't look me in my eyes. I really have a problem with that. Yeah.
And it spoke to a lot of secrecy and a lot of stuff that was going on. People sometimes have experiences in their life that have shaped them, and they bring all of those anxieties, fears, struggles, issues, idiosyncrasies into a relationship that makes it hard to begin to connect. And so listen, you got to be able to pay attention, and actively listening means acknowledging what's being said, shaking your head. Okay, I understand that. So what you're saying is, all right, because you're seeking to understand, not to be understood, right? A part of active listening is asking questions for further clarity. Now, wait a minute, you said such and such thing. Can you explain that a little bit more? Because I'm truly trying to understand where it is you're saying, because I want to peel this thing back, like, because it has several layers to it. I want to make sure that I truly get what it is that you're saying. So allow your partner to just release. Allow them to talk. Take notes. Okay, don't interrupt them, right? Once they're finished, reference the notes. Engage in the conversation. Make them feel as if you care about what it is that's being discussed. And when you can begin to do that, all of a sudden, things begin to change.
Yeah, I like this comment here. Luisa says, I think that showing empathy to the spouse that made the mistake is also very important. Understanding that my husband is also going through a healing process while dealing with the regret helped me. So powerful. We just want to be understood and heard. And it's really hard to recover from something like infidelity when we feel like the person that did it just doesn't get the magnitude of the destruction that they caused. So it's really important to do that. So number 2, express your perspective. So as Hassani said, you need to be a good listener. And what I love is actually having a conversation with someone where there's no interruptions and I've got a chance to clarify my points, because I might actually have a very Socratic way of telling my story. I might be making points over here and points over there that are going to lead to my ultimate point, and it's going to be good if you give me the moment and the chance to explain it, right? That means you're a great listener. But after the story is out and I have great understanding about it, now it's time for me to give my perspective. And this is a time where you can either win or you can lose. You can have an epic fail at this point, depending on what you say. Because our natural inclination is to move to the defense, right? Yep. Or say stuff like, well, I didn't mean to do that, or I didn't know, or it wasn't my fault, right? But instead, if you're going to use empathy, you're going to want to say things like, wow, that must have made you feel awful. I can understand how you would think that way or feel that way. Because when I was a child, this is how it happened for me. We talk about this all the time. It's called mirroring, right? When you listen to someone express how they felt about something, and then you move right to empathy by saying, listen, I know exactly what you mean. When I was 7 years old, this happened to me. Or just last week, I was cut off and I was really upset and I actually thought I was going to do this, So you start moving into a response from your perspective, how you understand. Not from your perspective, how you're innocent, or how you didn't mean to do it or anything like that, but how you understand what the person's going through.
And that's an important thing to do when you're showing empathy or attempting to, because your spouse will begin to believe, oh, okay, yeah, this is an example of how he's showing up in the right way. So great point. Point number 3, be vulnerable. See, vulnerability is so critically important. Now think about it. In business transactions, when dealing with colleagues, when dealing with customers, when dealing with associates, when dealing even with some friends, oftentimes we have a tendency of staying in the safe zone. And the safe zone is staying in spaces that are comfortable, right? Because none of us want to feel uncomfortable. But one of the things that we always say in intimate conversations is that you've got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Yeah. And so if you're showing up and you're on edge and you have anxiety and fears and trepidation and all these things going on, you need to sit in the pit of that pain until you no longer feel uncomfortable. Because as long as you're like this, then it's going to create a blockage in your relationship. But it's almost like, think about vulnerability like this: becoming emotionally naked. Now, a lot of you in your marriage, you have no problem becoming physically naked. That's what you do. That's physical intimacy. But emotional intimacy is when you take off all of the barriers that prevent an emotional connection. So we talk about this example all the time. If you're having physical intimacy, you'll use a condom. Why? A condom is used for protection. Protection from what? STDs and pregnancy. But oftentimes in emotional nakedness, we put condoms on our hearts to protect our feelings and emotions, and condoms on our head to protect our thoughts from being judged. And if we're walking into an emotional conversation like this, fully guarded, fully protected, we cannot be vulnerable. And vulnerability exposes your woundedness. It allows your spouse to see that, you know what? I'm not Superman, I'm really Clark Kent. And there's some struggles that I have and some things that I'm dealing with. And so one of the ways to really empathize with your spouse, because they're sharing their hurts, their pains, what they're going through, that for you to be vulnerable and then to share and to tell them, listen, I understand because I also have pains. So what happens is a lot of times the spouse feels like, number one, you don't care, right? And number two, you don't understand because you don't hurt the way I hurt. And you may not hurt the way they are hurting because their hurt is different. But when you can share your own hurts, I think that changes things. I remember in our relationship, early on, you would say, it's like you don't even care. You don't have any feelings. It's like you're a robot. You're an android. And it wasn't until we began to have deep conversations. And I remember one time I became vulnerable and started to cry, which was like something that I just really don't do.
I was shocked. And actually, at that moment, I was angry. We were in an argument. And then when he became vulnerable, all of a sudden, it was like an iceberg melted away. I was just like, oh my God, are you okay? You know, I sat down, I calmed down, I got quiet, because sometimes we just want to see the empathy from our partner. And this brings me to this point. If I could go to this point here that Darlene mentioned, she says, is it wrong to want to see the value of your forgiveness from your partner? And to me, that is a powerful question. Everyone wants to feel like you understand the magnitude of what I did here. Like, I've forgiven you. Do you appreciate that I've forgiven you? Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's wrong. I think we often, as offenders, will move on super fast because you just want to distance yourself as far as you can from what you did, right? So whatever it is that you did, as soon as you can get away from it, you forgave me, good, pew, and you're not even looking back. But the person is standing there that forgave you and wants to know that you appreciate that. And that is a form of empathy. That is showing a form of empathy, looking back and saying, I just want you to know, I see you. I see that you actually forgave me for something that was destructive in our marriage. I see you. I acknowledge you. So really good point there. The next point here is don't make assumptions. And, you know, this can go both ways, and you could put this onto so many scenarios. People have all kinds of misunderstandings based on assumptions. And that's why the best thing to do when we assume something's happening or we feel hurt by things is that we do go into the step before, and that is communicate those things clearly and allow yourself to have a stage. And that's why you come together and say, hey, listen, there's some things going on, and I just want to make sure, let's just be clear and make sure that there are, you know, that we both understand what we're seeing here. And that's the opportunity that you have to clarify, make your points, get understanding so that you don't have to make assumptions. Because if you do move only on the assumptions, then your empathy is almost false, right? Because I can't empathize with you based on my assumption of what I think you felt or what I think was going on with you, right? I need to actually talk to you, get the clarity that is needed so that I say, okay, aha, that's what it was, because I thought, right? Now I understand, right? Now I see you. I get that what was really going on was this right here and now. It wasn't an offense that I was putting upon you or anything like that. So it's really important for us not to make assumptions.
Absolutely. And then our final point, and then we're going to open it up to the questions. Use your imagination. You know, there's something powerful about an imagination. It allows you to begin to expand beyond your knowledge. I remember Albert Einstein saying that imagination is more important than knowledge, because we're limited by what we know. But when you tap into that faculty of your brain, your imagination, you're able to go into spaces and worlds and places that your knowledge will not allow you to do. So if you can't truly understand what someone is going through because you haven't been in their shoes, you want to begin to close your eyes and imagine. See, because think about it, all of the senses sight, smell, touch, feel. You can bring that into your mental faculty and begin to recreate a vision. Think about it. We talk about visualizing. Many people get up early in the morning and begin to visualize themselves walking throughout the course of their day and experiencing an experience before they experience it. Well, try to experience what your spouse is going through in your own imagination, because guess what? You're training your subconscious mind to embrace something. And when you begin to do that, all of a sudden things begin to change. You begin to show up in ways you didn't before, and you begin to have a level of intimacy. Hopefully these tips are helping. We're gonna, listen, many of you are struggling. Many of you are looking for something more. And that's exactly why we have the programs and the services that we provide. One of them being the Last Chance Weekend. We're excited because tomorrow we have another Last Chance Weekend with 5 couples, actually 6 couples from all over the country coming to get what it is that they need to restore their relationship. And so if that's you, if you want to learn how to develop more intimacy, you need to be at the next one coming up. But listen, we'll talk more about that on the other side of this message. Be right back. Hey guys, I just want to take the time to acknowledge Kia Bello. She said, looking forward to the process this weekend, but have to admit, today is hard. I definitely understand that. We understand where you are, and that's why we've invested these 3 days to giving you what it is that you need. You can overcome the challenges that you're going through. Every day doesn't have to be like today, and that's the exciting part about it. And that's why being a part of a community is so critically important, because you will see other people who have been where you are. And what's exciting about that is there's a pathway that they took to get to the other side. And we're going to take a journey to get you to the other side.
I'll never forget, before Hassani and I went through this journey ourselves, we really could not find a couple that was happy. There were folks that were together for a long time, but nobody was truly satisfied except for one couple. And we said, what is their secret sauce? Whatever it is, that there's hope. We know that there's a way. And we went deep and wide to figure out what it is. What is the secret sauce for each couple? Because it's individual to you, and that's what we bring to you. I'm also excited about tomorrow because it is Friday. And it is Q&A Friday. So all the questions that you guys have, get prepared, come on early, drop your questions first so that we can get to it, because we have about 28 minutes to get through all your questions, and then the show is over. And I don't know what it is about Q&A Fridays that it just feels like it goes by in like 5 minutes, right?
Really fast.
But if it's a good question that we think will really help a lot of people, we'll spend more time on that question. So get in here early and drop your questions as soon as you can, and we'll jump right into it.
Got a couple comments here we want to hit right quick. How does a person encourage an emotional avoidant to show empathy? Well, one thing that you can do is demonstrate what empathy looks like by having it for your partner. So for instance, obviously they're not an android, right? They're not a stone. Right. They have feelings, emotions, issues they're dealing with. And in most cases, one of the reasons why they avoid is because they don't know how to properly deal with what's going on the inside of them. And so when you begin to demonstrate empathy towards them, and then as you're doing it or after you're doing it, say, see what I did for you? You see how all these steps that we just went through, if you do these steps with your partner and then articulate what those steps were, you're giving them a pathway of how they can begin to show up for you. And I think that's one of the things that you can do.
Yeah. The other thing is that you have to know who you're dealing with, because your empathy avoidant person is avoiding empathy for a reason. It's because that there's some hurt that they are unwilling to acknowledge. So if they can't acknowledge their own hurt and their own pain, which is deeply buried within, they may not even be conscious of the hurt and the pain. Or they might be. They might have told you the stories of growing up or something that happened that caused them to shut down, lose hope, and just become hard, right? Until they're willing to work on their hurt, it's really difficult for them to empathize with others, right? We cannot give what we do not have, right? So if I don't have empathy and love for myself, I can't really give it to you.
That's a good point. Wow. That's a very powerful point. So knowing who you're dealing with is critically important. Here's another question. He doesn't understand how much he has hurt me. How do I make him understand? So, what you say he can become numb to because he's heard it and heard it and heard it and heard it. And it's just like, yeah, okay, I know you told me, yeah, but I don't get it. I don't understand. Here's a great idea. If you can find, maybe this is something we could talk about, find other individuals who've experienced a level of hurt that he can now see what they are going through because he's emotionally disconnected from that person. He doesn't know who that person is. See, it's one thing when it's you. It's just like, yeah, I know you. You just being extra. You just being dramatic. But when you can hear and see other people who've had similar experiences that have experienced that level of hurt and pain, it's a different process that person goes through. They're like, oh, so it's not just my crazy spouse. This is common. This is real. And so another thing is educating himself or herself, whoever it is, or educating yourselves collectively as a couple. Because I think that what happens is the person who's been betrayed, they have become master students of the topic, while the person who has actually done the damage is ignorant about infidelity and the affair, and the complications and the drama that associated with an affair. So the more knowledgeable they become, they gain a level of insight so they can begin to understand what it is that you're going through as well. So there's a number of different things that you can do. And that's why being part of a small group is so critically important. Like our Moving Forward program, it's not just you and your spouse in the program. There are about 10, 15 other couples who have similar experiences. And you can begin to empathize with someone you're not connected with, which will allow you to empathize with your spouse.
Very good. I see so many conversations going on. Vegan Bliss is going in the chat. She's saying, I've done that for 16 years. He is still emotionally unavailable. How do I handle that? And you know what? It's a difficult position to be in when you're with somebody who's emotionally unavailable. Oftentimes we will literally make up stories for ourselves as to why this person is like this. I guess he's my quiet, giant, my stoic warrior, all these reasons why we will compensate in our mind for why this person just doesn't talk. And again, it is deep-seated, rooted hurt and pain. I mean, there are others that communicate, just don't communicate as much. Fives, for example, on the Enneagram chart, they just are not the best communicators as far as speaking out of their mouth what they want to say. There's a lot going on the head. But if you're really struggling with somebody who is just shut down emotionally towards you, that is a situation where you really want to find some strong counseling, make it happen, figure out a way. And we talked about this in the other show, the consequences part of it, right? Because people say, well, he just won't. Well, he will. You've just got to find some really convincing reasons to make sure that he will show up to counseling. All right, you've got to figure out what that means for you. Also, I just want to acknowledge Corliss. I see you on here. I haven't seen you in a while. Miss you. Make sure you reach out to me. We need to talk.
Well, guys, that's our show. Hopefully you got something out of it. The 5 ways to show empathy, the 5 ways to be empathetic towards your spouse. These are the things that we want you to do. Take the time, watch this video again, share it with your spouse. Talk about it, unpack it, see where you're missing the mark and what you can begin to incorporate into your relationship. Once again, tomorrow is relationship Q&A.
Yes.
So make sure you text us or make sure you chat your question. We only have 30 minutes, so you don't want to waste your time 20 minutes in. Now you got a question and then it's almost over.
Happens.
It happens every week, folks.
Come in early.
That's why we keep prepping you and prepping you and prepping you. So let's get this. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you on tomorrow before the end of the weekend.
Bye, y'all.
Take care.
If you would like to be a guest on our show, or if you're interested in one of our restoration programs, contact us today at couplesacademy.org. Bye.